Men are not coming back, and nobody wants to talk about what that means. But I think I know what it means, because I talk to a lot of men one-on-one, and the conversations that I have, the common through line from each of those conversations is that they were destroyed in one way or another by a woman, and they were in one of two positions. They were either in the thick of it, they were just stuck in a very difficult place, and they couldn't find a way out of it, they couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel, or they had already gone through it, they got out the other side clean. Well, some of them clean, some of them not so much, some of them heavily damaged, but they had become a new man and in a better position mentally, and they were refined through that fire that they had gone through. And so it's in these men's experiences that I think there's a lot of insight. There's a roadmap in that. And what I mean by that is it's these men's experiences that are causing other men to look at the reality of not just living in this modern society, but surviving it and what it will take to survive it. They have to think about what it will take of them to do this, right? But regardless of which direction they go, it will take something from them, right? So if they don't choose family, then they'll never have one. And that is devastating. That is a devastating reality for a lot of men. I understand that there are some men that don't want family. I'm not talking about you. It's for the men that do want to have a family. But if they do choose family, right, if that opportunity does present itself, then that can be taken from them, right? And so, which from my perspective, it seems more painful, because I have gone through that. And so, because when you look at the legal landscape, right, when you look at the custody arrangements and the alimony payments, the child support, the false allegations, the alienation, you name it, all of that risk and exposure is not worth it for a lot of men. It isn't, right? The juice is no longer worth the squeeze pursuing a family and fulfilling our biological imperative as men. A species with these kinds of problems cannot continue. The dam, it has to break at some point. So unfortunately, a man has to throw away his dreams of having a family. And like I said, for most of men, it's not because they don't want to. Of course they do. But it's about self-preservation at this point, right? And so men, they aren't just withholding marriage, but they're also civic participation, right? They're abandoning that. They're walking away from that. Church involvement, right? I would say any ambition beyond mere survival at this point. It is pointless to participate in society in the conventional sense anymore. It's very archaic, or antiquated, I would say, in a lot of cases, just by the way that men are treated. It's mostly one-sided, and it extracts from men. So it only makes sense to cut off its access and now only extract from it what you can, because that's what you need to do when you're in survival mode, right? You're protecting your energy and your sanity and only doing what's absolutely necessary and trying to get as much out of it for your benefit as possible, right? I'm not talking about exploiting people, okay? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about being malevolent. I'm not talking about being Machiavellian, okay? My point is that men, they aren't given the authority and respect that they used to have, right? That they used to have been given. And most of the time, we're just being exploited, right? We're not being exalted, especially in the churches, right? Tons of men, including myself, have stopped attending, right? Tons of men, they are leaving churches, and they're either practicing their relationship with God on their own terms and no longer attending, or they're rejecting organized religion and Christian beliefs altogether. And so I myself was a Protestant for most of my life. I grew up baptized when I was 6 in the Southern Baptist Church, right? Went through various different denominations of Protestantism, and then in 2017, when I was 22, almost 23, or 32, almost 33, I converted to Catholicism, and then I was Catholic up until 2024, and then I decided to leave for a host of reasons, which I'm not going to get into. I've talked about them in previous videos, but so bottom line is these churches, even the Orthodox ones, the people filling those pews, they're filled, even leadership, it's all filled with feminized men who are, well, they're statists for one. They're statists, they're feminized, very much plugged in. They're constantly browbeating men in the church and telling them that they need to get their stuff together for women, and placing absolutely no responsibility or accountability on the women. And most of the women, these men have have to choose from, right? They're not even chaste women, right? They have a past of promiscuity, and for whatever reason, there's something about them. There's a past that they have where they are not suitable. Something about them doesn't make them suitable wives or mothers, is what I'm saying. And I would say that more men are waking up to that reality, the reality that they're stuck in survival mode while women are nestled in easy mode in a lot of cases. And so we are just sick and tired of being extracted from for the betterment of others and at our expense, especially when those doing the extracting are claiming that they're not doing that. They're gaslighting you, saying that they truly love you and they need you, but they need you, but they don't love you. And we're finally seeing that for what it really is, which is just plain Jane manipulation. So we're just in this period where everything and everyone is failing us, and there's no suitable jobs out there. There's no suitable women out there. There are not a lot of suitable people to even connect with anymore. The world has just become a pawn shop with items that none of us want to buy, and whatever we have, we're willing to offload it even at a loss. At this point, we're just ready to cut our losses. And at the heart of all of this, of course, is central banks and governments and universities, which have worked for over a century creating this. I would call it an extinction level problem, and it's for profit and control. They've priced men out of families, and they've corrupted women out of being suitable wives and mothers, right? And this will continue until everything unravels, and that's exactly what we're seeing. It's an exhausting existence that we're living in, right? And so we're watching the threads of society. They're unraveling quicker and quicker, and there's nothing that we can do to stop it, right? Because if you think about it, there's over a century of momentum behind it, right? And there's not enough collective will to even slow it down at this point. And I know that this sounds very black pill and doomer, and yeah, it does, and it is, right? For me, I think it has turned me more white pilled, honestly. I would say, in the words of Tim the Tool Man Taylor, before there is construction, there is destruction. So these oppressive mechanisms in our everyday lives, they need to wither and die so that we can finally live, right? And if you've read The Fourth Turning, then you know exactly where we're at in the cycles of history. And so I was talking about this with one of my clients. I brought up how now I see life as a 3D video game, and in a sense, nothing is real, right? It's just, I just need to enjoy the video game and see it for what it really is. And like Bill Hicks said, it's just a ride, okay? And that's the mentality that I wasn't able to adopt as a Christian. And I'm so glad that I threw away that belief system, because it forced me, in that when I was a Christian, it forced me to remain in the matrix and be caged to a degree. At least my mind, it felt caged, and I felt muzzled to an extent. I saw these contradictions, and the authorities of the church, they didn't really allow certain questions to be asked, and they would just call it, they would dismiss it as sinful thinking, rebellious thinking, or if they didn't have an answer for me, they would just call it a mystery. Like, this is just a mystery. We just don't know. And my mind just can no longer believe that is the true path for a human to be free. At first, when you leave a belief system like that, I mean that I built my whole paradigm around it, right? But when you rip that foundation away from yourself that you've had for so long, it strips you and it leaves you naked for a time. It leaves you vulnerable. It leaves you without you don't have a foundation. So, and that's where individuation, it presented itself to me. And then, of course, the rest is history. I've talked about that plenty of times, about my process of individuation. And so the men that I speak to that are awake and free, they seem to have that commonality. I mean, not all of them, but a growing number of them. And so I spot trends, and I understand that I also understand that my Christian audience, they would strongly disagree or even be offended by what I'm saying, by these words, and I understand why. I'm not meaning to offend you. Everyone is free to believe what they think is the truth, and I'm not going to insult you for believing that. And by expressing, I'm just expressing my opinions and my beliefs and my journey. I'm not personally insulting or attacking you. So this is just how I see things. And yeah, I could be wrong. I could be very wrong. I think that it's freeing to let go and just accept that you can be wrong. Okay, I think that goes for me, and I think that goes for Christians as well. I think if they can just also have that same mindset, I think that we could get along and find some common ground and be able to connect with one another regardless of what we truly believe. But in closing, I want to make the point, or I wanted to point to the reality of what we're facing and just show what men have to do to not even thrive and enjoy their lives, but just to stay alive and exist, and a lot of times in misery. So it's creating an existential crisis in men, and it's making them look at it and just say, what's the point, right? I'm existing to continue my existence. This seems so circular and meaningless. And we can't even live a life of simplicity anymore. We can't have simple enjoyment, and we can't even continue our own bloodline without facing immense risk. It says a lot when you have to be wealthy just to have a farm and a family. So, but I would say that it's in that existential crisis that I'm talking about, that I think where freeing your mind happens. That's what brought me to individuation and becoming fully whole. And I think it's only when you're fully whole that you can make the right decisions for your life and choose to walk away from all of this and find alternative ways to go about living and surviving. But yeah, I would say that more men are individuating, and they are making better decisions for themselves now. Based on what I've seen, I know it's anecdotal, but from the conversations I've had, I'm just seeing a growing number of men who are now really in a better place mentally and emotionally and financially after going either from making the right decisions beforehand, because I myself, I didn't make the right decisions beforehand. I made a lot of dumb decisions, and I ended up where I am now. I'm so grateful to be a parent, but now I see the world for what it truly is. And I want to be able to help men identify those things if they're on that path, or just to keep them from veering on that path, and the ones that are on that path to help them survive it and get to the other side of it. But yeah, it's a journey that some men have to go through. But I think that we're seeing a lot of men, really the ones that are waking up, they're having this same thought process, I think. But yeah, and more men are individuating, and I think that individuation is what is allowing them to make these better decisions for themselves, and are now starting to thrive in their survival. So yes, we are still surviving, but we are also thriving.